Hello everybody, Martin here, and yeah, the second part of this tutorial had a tiny bit of delay, but know this, I had a very good reason. I was actually finishing up the release of my huge Substance Painter course made for Zach Reinhardt's CG Boost, so if you want to learn more about how to use this awesome painting software properly, go ahead and give it a try, the link is in the description. In today's part of this helmet series, we will add a crest geometry, work on finishing up the shape of the helmet, as well as improving the overall topology. So let's get to it. Alright, let's jump straight back to work where we left off last time. And we'll begin by focusing on this particular face up here, which we will actually get rid of by tapping delete and then choosing faces. Now we can select the edge vertices and start pushing them a bit with our favorite G shortcut so that it is a bit more rounded like this. What I want to do is to create a base for the crest holder part. And since now I have shaped this area the way I want and I know looks good when the face is separated, I can go back in, select these edges and hit F to fill the hole. Now without selecting anything else, hit P and choose to separate selection. We got a separate piece of geometry and we can work with it individually to create a crest holder. And right away, let's add one edge here with Ctrl R. Next, increase the amount of subdivisions for the helmet so we can see a bit smoother result. Okay, now onto the crest holder. Let's start with shaping the crest base a bit more along with the helmet. I don't have an exact reference here and I doubt there was any unified shape for this. The designs basically varied town to town, bronzesmith by bronzesmith. So let's just make this back part a bit straighter while leaving the front part curved. Now with these top faces selected, hit I to inset and drag your mouse inward. Afterwards, get rid of these faces and push the edges to the center so that the mirroring snaps together. For some reason, I always love the moment when these two things connect like this. By the way, you can move only on the x-axis by tapping G and X. Cool, now select these inner faces and let's get extruding. Hit E and move the vertices up along the z-axis. After you move them, delete the faces. We are making this very high archaic crest, which was very impractical and must have been pretty heavy, but it looks very cool in my opinion, so the higher the better, right? This seems a bit too thick though. So activate the X-ray to be able to select these edges easier and scale them inward a bit by hitting S. Then do the same thing for the top part, maybe even more than for the bottom. You can also add a new edge loop by hitting Ctrl R and adding it here to tighten this bottom part. You can then scale it down a bit more and then, if you select this edge and hit G, you can slide it along the normal, basically making the front part even more round. Cool, this looks way better, so we can continue extruding a proportion several times. Let's actually do it from the side view, that will be more precise. And if you don't like the right view, you can change it up here with the gizmo to the left view. Nice. Alt left click and select the edges, then start extruding, then rotating, extruding, and rotating again until you get a shape like this. I used about 6 extrusions, but feel free to add any number you want. Then you can always go back and adjust the shape as needed by alt left clicking on the edge loops and rotating them from the side view to make the flow of the shape a bit better. Finally, select the edges here and fill the area with a face. You do that by hitting F, of course. And then Ctrl R to add an edge loop and tighten the end of the crest holder. And then one more loop here to make the top sharper. With that, I think we have a pretty solid base for the crest. At this point, as usual, we can do again some more shaping of the helmet, if you feel like it, of course. And again, I recommend using the edge slide tool with G. Going back to your meshes and adjusting them is always a good idea, especially now before the UVing process starts. After UVing, changing the geometry is much less convenient since you'll be destroying the UVs you've made. And yes, we will get into UVing this helmet in the future lessons. Let's extrude these faces here, because I'll want to add a little depression here to put the horsehair crest into it. Damn it. Select it. Good. Oh, by the way, since we had the solidify modifier added to the helmet from the last part of this tutorial, it is still applied even to this crest. For this part though, we don't need it, so delete it now before it causes problems later. Finish the selection and then hit Alt-E to get this extrude menu and choose extrude along normals. Drag it out like this and immediately add a loop edge here to make the extruded region sharper. Also, while we are at it, let's add 2 more edge loops here and also extrude this bottom region so that it looks like it's connecting to the helmet. But to be honest, I'm not really happy with the topology now. So let's get rid of this edge loop again, alt-clicking on it and dissolving the edges. Then instead, let's add a loop here to sharpen the end part of the protrusion. Do the same here, and actually, I'm not happy with the end part of this mesh at all. Constant revisions of your meshes like these are actually pretty normal, and they will make you think about your topology and how to make it flow as best as possible. So, I want to have nicely connected end part of this object. And up here, I have 2 edges, while down here, just 1. So I'll first get rid of this one up here to make our lives easier when connecting this region. It will be a bit faster to add it back later than to try creating new edges and connecting them all. So dissolve the loop, select this upper edge, this bottom edge, and hit F. Then to connect this little gap here, we need to divide the newly created face into 2. Let's do it with Ctrl R. And now, to quickly merge these 2 vertices together, just hit C to get into a paint select mode. Click on this area, and with a bit of luck, you will select both of the vertices sharing this little area here. And then when you hit Alt-M and choose, for example, to join the geometry at the first selected vertex, you will see how the weird shading error disappears, and your geometry will now be nicely and smoothly connected. We can now quite easily add this edge loop back, though I do not like the way it makes this area sharp, so let's deselect the edges I want to remain sharp, and with the rest selected, hit double G and slide more towards the center of the geometry to smooth it out again. And yeah, this looks quite good, but later on we will actually improve this a bit more. What we can also do is to polish the shape slightly. In X-ray mode, it's much easier to select. We can actually use a handy add-on here called Loop Tools, which you can find in the Edit mode here in the Edit shelf. With it, we can easily straighten our selected row of vertices, which would otherwise be pretty hard to do, at least while retaining the angle of the row. If you don't find the add-on, just head over to your settings and in Add-ons here, activate Loop Tools. Then down here, select all the edge loops separately, apply the flatten tool, and also let's play around with positioning of the edges. Finally, now it's time to add the little dip in the geometry here. Inset them, and just like we did in case of the crest base, delete this inside row of faces. Then just push everything to the center until it snaps. With that, we can finally extrude along normals with Alt-E and go down with the geometry. About this height will be just fine. To harden the edges on the ends of the recesses, add new edge loops in these areas. And with that, we are ready with this part, and we can probably safely apply the mirror modifier. Main reason why I'm applying it now is that I want to get rid of this center edge loop to eliminate the hard edge, and we can then also push all the rest of these front edges with edge slide to make the front smoother. Now let me just scale this edge loop a bit along the x-axis. And the crest holder is pretty much done. What we can do now is to create a base for our crest hair particles. You can do that by simply selecting these faces at the bottom of the recess and hitting Shift D to duplicate them. And then don't forget to hit P to separate them from the crest holder. strengthen the edges of this geometry stripe with edge loops so that they're not that rounded due to our sub-D modifier applied to it. And that's it, a base for our particles that we will add later. Now is also a very good time to name the pieces of your geometry, so do that. Rename this to particle base, the base to helmet, and this to crest. If your model needs it, you can go back again to a bit of pulling and pushing vertices on the helmet. And it was at this point that I finally decided to remove these edges to round up the corners of these cheek pieces. And after you'll be done with that to your liking, you have successfully finished this part of the tutorial. Next time we will finish the whole model, and we will also have a look at some basic hair particles for the crest. So until then, Merry Christmas, Martin out.